Ha, we here. Big fish shit. Ooh, ooh. Welcome to the podcast. Hope y'all enjoy it. Hope y'all learn something. And most importantly, we hope y'all elevate. Let's get it.
Big fish, hit a big lick. We gon' bet it right back and hit a big flip. We been up for a minute and we still lit. Get them cats gon' talk, but we don't feel shit. We just giving y'all gems y'all can live with. Elevate your mind, never mind all the bullshit. Finna talk about stocks, we ain't worry about ops. First get the bread up, then buy back the whole block. 10 toes down, we ain't never gonna stop. I'm a man of my word, I ain't never gonna flop. If I said it, then I meant it. Real ones gon' respect it, and it's still OG. It's in me, I represent it.
We're already started. This is going to be a casual one.
All right.
I can already tell, and that's in a good way. Even though there are two mics, there are more than two people that will be involved in this show. But of course, I have my big bro on. I got two of my big bros here, and then I got my little bro here, who I have to thank for the amazing setup. As you can see, this is not a studio. This is really in New York City. But we have the CEO of Stewart Enterprise, Tony Gaines.
Wow, thanks.
And
appreciate it.
Tony and I met at a Think Billions event. Shout out to Howie P. in Cali in the desert. Which part of that?
It's around Palm Springs.
All right, so Palm Springs, amazing house. Tony stood out to me because he was the quiet one of the quiet guys in the room that I was kind of just observing.
Wow.
And I'm like, that guy must be somebody important, or must know something that I can benefit from. So that's kind of why. I don't even know if you remember the first thing that you did. The first thing that kind of set you apart from a lot of other people was
this metal
noise.
car. Yeah.
This noise. So he gave me this, and I was like a little kid when I just got an Amex account. So
okay.
it has the Amex card. So I was like, I get real excited when I can pay for something and, get one of these. But when I got his card, it stood out to me, and I said, you know what? Like, this is something that I need to incorporate in some stuff that I'm doing. So It's the marketing, it's the business, it's everything, but you made an impact, and here we are today.
Wow, thanks.
So
and you made an impact on me too.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. And I guess, let's kind of get into one of the first things that we always do when we have a guest on, talk about your upbringing. I've had the pleasure of learning a little bit about it, but would love for the audience to see and hear exactly what type of upbringing created this amazing man I sit in front of right now.
Wow. Wow. And that's, I won't tear up. Anyways, no, my upbringing, I grew up Arizona, born and raised, like third generation, which is rare for Arizona if you know much about the state. So grew up blue collar. Dad worked for the phone company. Probably got my work ethic from him because he worked triple time every weekend trying to make ends meet. My mom worked for American Express, actually. Had an office there. So blue collar, normal kind of kid life, wrestled. A few times state champion there, throw it in there, but
just throw it in there.
Throw it in there. But when you're in the fourth grade and weighed, what did I weigh? 34 pounds or something like that. I was wrestling kids that were in like first grade. So I was always tiny, like really, really tiny. So I wrestled up until the sixth grade, regional state champions. But again, I was the highest weight I ever wrestled was 60 pounds. So, basically 60 pounds between 6th and 7th grade. So I was wrestling little kids. It really wasn't that hard until I went to the Western Regionals, and there's more kids my size at my age.
You found out there's more kids out there.
That had skill because I just walked through, on that kind of stuff because I use my age and knowledge. Got into motorcycles in about 76. Again, blue collar, going to the dunes. Good life, good upbringing, a lot of schools, loving parents, sister, all that was good. But decent home life. Can't complain too much. All kind of stopped when I was about 13. Parents got divorced, changed my world a little bit. Actually lived with my dad because I was racing. And again, back to the work ethic, but unfortunately, single father, working 65 hours, I had to grow up pretty damn fast. And so I was racing bikes, it was my passion, and just kind of did that. Lived pretty, I don't want to say broke, but we didn't have a lot of money, living in a tough neighborhood, not a lot going on, spending every penny my dad made on bikes. And what I worked since I was 11. So doing block wall fence footings since I was 11, because it's that was my babysitter as a kid. I had to work my ass off. So I'm allowed to cuss on this.
You are absolutely allowed to curse.
I had to work my ass off, and all the money I got went into my bikes and stuff, and that was going well. Didn't really care about school. You and I talked in California. The thing for me was, drugs weren't a thing back then. Mm-hmm. Marijuana was, but drugs weren't a thing back then. So the steroids and all those things that the football, baseball, all those guys, I didn't even know it existed. So, and I think I joke, I think I told you, if I would have known, I would have traded 30 years of life for a healed up injury, because in motorcycles you get busted up a lot.
Yeah. So
I broke my first femur when I was 12.
Damn.
Collarbones, ribs, scars on the heart, fingers, nose, all that. Broken 23 bones, 10 concussions, a lot of torn muscles, a lot of other stuff. But that was the upbringing, just hard work, racing, which we talked about. Didn't have a lot of money, so I was at the track. People had motorhomes, big trailers, 5-6 bikes, and here I am on my year-old bike and old gear and going at it, and did pretty well. Turned pro at it's two different levels of pro, if you think, just kind of like football in a way. So there's like the junior league, or call it like G League in basketball, and then you got the big time. And I turned regional, if you will, pro when I was about 15, 16, and then I turned professional supercross, motocross when I was about 17. So right after graduated high school at 17, that summer raced the amateur nationals. If anyone knows about motorcycles, amateur nationals, it's like the last thing you do before you turn big pro, where you're on racing stadiums. And then that funny story there, Anaheim won, which just happened over the weekend, which is a great race if you ever watch it. And broke my femur December 18th. On my 18th, basically just after my 18th birthday, 2 weeks before A1, my pro debut, and a broken femur takes forever. So all my sponsors, the next guys up, everything were right behind me. So I raced a couple supercrosses, a couple outdoors, some back then what you would call regional nationals. And that was it. And then I had to get a job. So that's basically what made me, the hard work and perseverance and just nonstop. Yeah, that basically built me today, if you will, working my tail off every day.
So here I thought football was a tough sport.
Yeah.
And here I thought that me, starting getting my first job at McDonald's at 14, 15, I thought, I was doing something. And then I hear, you explain all of your upbringing, and it's true. I'm a firm believer in, I don't know whether nature, nurture, but I'm just a firm believer in however you grow up, it's going to shape you to become who you are. And you kind of were in a situation where it sounds like you were forced to take care of yourself, but a lot of other people in that situation don't necessarily make that decision. A lot of people. It's I was talking earlier to a friend. And we were just discussing how when you're put in certain situations, you learn a lot about yourself. So you fortunately learned a lot about yourself at a young age, whether it was bouncing back from injuries, having to take care of yourself, and even the mental side of, having your parents divorce.
Right.
I'm sure that played, a toll. What made you go with your dad? That's a
great, so learning yourself, it's a great segue into what you just said is my mom was young. When my sister, she was very young, 15, 16, had me at 19, was working, doing well. Parents just didn't get along. They needed a divorce. It wasn't one of those like, oh my God, he or she cheated. It was just like when they grew apart as opposed to growing together, because they were both, my dad got married right out of the Army to my mom, who had a child at 16. So, I mean, sure, there's plenty of shows that kind of show that kind of world. And so they were getting divorced, and my mom was 32, so she was young. And it was one of those, I knew I wanted to race. I knew if I went with my mom, she wasn't going to be able to afford it. When she didn't have a truck, she wasn't going to be able to get me bikes, wasn't going to take me to the track. It wasn't her thing. And I knew that I wouldn't be disciplined, right, with my mom.
At that young age, you could just feel it.
I knew it. I have an older sister that had a little rough childhood, if you will. And that's what happens when your mom is, 16 when you're born, and you build your life stuff at an early age and what you're going to do. My sister's great now, by the way. But I just I'm not going to be successful if I go with my mom. I'm not going to get my joy, if you will, if I go with my mom. So, I mean, it hurt, obviously, hurt her, hurt me. But, I made the choice to suck it up, live with my dad, and, ride bikes.
That's a grown-up decision at a very young age. One that I always compare logic versus emotion. That seemed like the very logical choice. And a lot of, even, me, I'm 35 years old. A lot of people, I'm sure, older than me struggle with that aspect, just making decisions just based on the logic, whether it's relationships. I'm sure we all are in that situation. We're actually we're in currently my girlfriend's little brother's apartment, so we have to be a little bit careful here. But relationships, the same thing. Sometimes we're with people that the emotions keep us in certain situations where, logically speaking, it's like this just doesn't make sense.
Well, we talked about it. I was engaged at 19, 20. Going to college, junior college, working full time. And it was the same sort of decision as I did when I was 13. I was sitting at lunch with my best friends and best friend's parents, actually mom and sister. And they were sitting just having lunch. They're like, what do you want to do with your life? And it was probably one of the most profound questions I've ever gotten ever. And I just, not this. I don't want to work in a warehouse making $25K a year. Married to, this girl I was dating. She was a great person, wonderful. Just one of those things where you either get married and possibly be miserable, or you break it off, right? Loved her. She was great person, great personality, but I was just too young. I was 19, 20, wanting to get married. Not a smart decision at all. Yeah. And at that day, I think I might have even told you, that day I went to Barnes & Noble, but it wasn't Barnes & Noble back then, got the U.S. News top 25 public colleges, and I applied to everyone. Then it was, no one in my family had ever gone to college. I didn't even know where the colleges were. And here I am applying to, Rice, Stanford. And I think I was getting, when I put the stamp on the letter and put it into the mailbox, I think the postman just opened it, said no, and put it back in for me. But I applied to top 25, and of the top 25, I only got 2 acceptance letters, and one was Minnesota, one was Purdue. And so it was, for me, it was an easy decision. It was Purdue.
Say, you made the right decision.
But I didn't even know where it was. Right? Yeah. I grew up on racing, but I didn't watch college sports. I didn't care about college sports. I didn't care about colleges. I was never, ever going to go. Never taken the SAT, never taken the ACT, graduated 792nd in my class with a 192. Not because I was, super, I just never went. I mean, I left Friday morning for California to race, and I got home Monday, and if I was injured, I missed a few days of school. I think I set the record of 16 absences one semester. I mean, it was just, I was never there. But junior college got me a decent GPA and got me into Purdue, and I graduated Purdue with basically a 3.0, 3.1, but and then I went to work for Gallo, and the rest is history.
How at such a young age, even the first 2 decisions, all right, so the first decision, just understanding where you're going to live, the decision with marriage, not to kind of just, I guess the ability to realize that this is not what I want.
Right.
And then the discipline to say, I'm leaving this current situation, even though I love her, situation is great, but I just need more.
Right.
What was in you that just made you at such a young age realize, was it the state championships in wrestling? Like, what was it that made you just realize I can do better? Like, there's something bigger out here for me. I'm not just boxed in by my current situation, current environment, current upbringing.
That's a good question, and I think it probably the grass is always greener on the other side, right? Kind of deal. It's like I always wanted, when I was a kid, it was funny. I always wanted I wanted a Beamer, or I wanted a Porsche, or I wanted something that someone else had, the big house, the big mansion. I had friends with money, and they all had their toys and their trailers, and at a young age, I wanted that, right? So what's going to get me? I saw goods, or, well, in essence, homes, cars, as success, which I don't today, but back then I did. And it was like, okay, what am I going to do to get that? Because if I don't better myself, then I'm going to keep doing exactly what I'm doing now. And like I said, I was going to be making, 25 grand. My best friend still works for his parents. Great family, worked his ass off, owns part of the company, but he still only gets 2 weeks vacation a year. Right? I mean, kind of deal. And he's right. It's just, and I didn't want that life for me. And, and even later, I've made some of those big decisions, leaving Gallo, leaving Anheuser-Busch, all on my own. Those are, when you're leaving a company like Gallo or Budweiser, you're the king, literally the king in the industry. And you have everything, Super Bowl tickets, 50-yard line, field passes. You're going to the Kentucky Derby, sitting at the finish line. I mean, it's a lifestyle that people would die for, and I left it. So there's been some hard decisions in my life.
Number one reason that you left?
Number one, happiness. At that point, I had made it my career successful by then. 20 years at Gallo. I got to the point where I wasn't worried about getting a job, and actually, I had several friends actually say, it was like, everyone will hire you. You have all the experience. You have all the friends. My Rolodex is amazing, as we like to say in the industry. They're like, dude, you can do whatever you want. Just do it. And I'm like, okay. And it was literally that simple. And I did.
And, okay, so this is something that I struggle with. And I think we may have touched on it. But the happiness, it's something for me that most of my success, like let's say with football, it's come from me just locking in, pushing happiness to the side. This is what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm miserable. I don't care if I'm depressed. Like, I don't care. I need to just lock in order to get to this goal. And as I get older and older, I realize that I need more of a balance. But it's tough because it's like I'm always going to fall back on what I know will get me the desired outcome that I'm looking for, rather than, well, let me try to have a little bit more enjoyment in my life. So right. I'm always balancing between the pleasure and the purpose. And it's almost like, if I can describe it, let's say I have a cup. If I have a cup, and I'll ask you this, if you had a cup in front of you, let's say at 25 years old, matter of fact, you're 35, you're me.
Yeah.
And you have 2 bottles of whatever, you have your bottle of pleasure and your bottle of purpose.
Yeah.
How much are you putting in your glass of each? Like, you can only fill up, obviously it's going to be, maybe is it 50% purpose, 50% pleasure? What would your cup consist of?
Oof. Well,
at 35. At 35.
35. Whoa, that would have been. Yeah, that was actually back then, which is kind of funny. I went the other way at 35, and I added more pleasure. Because at that point, I had been with Gallo 12 years, I guess, 13 years, moved back to Arizona. Friends were all there working. I'm still working hard, married, no kids yet. And I made the decision for more pleasure. So I bought a motorcycle again. So it'd be like you going back into football, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to go in and because to me it was fun. And so I picked pleasure at the time, put my career actually on hold because the Gallo didn't appreciate me because I turned professional again. They didn't, regional professional, not the motocross, supercross like you see on TV, just local West national stuff. And so I was riding again, happy as can be, right? Because when I'm on a bike, I'm happy as can be. And I picked pleasure. Hurt my career for a few years.
But was it worth it?
Well, that was 2 blown ACLs, microfractured my knees, both tib femur joints, shattered or cut all the nerves in my forehead. I had another major concussion, knocked out for 10 plus minutes, lost 4 hours. But yes, it was worth it. And the only reason I stopped and I went back to work as opposed to pleasure was I couldn't ride anymore. So I took that pleasure energy and I put it into work and was more successful.
You knew that you could always go back and do well on that side.
Yeah.
You knew you could always,
Yeah, and it's my issue with riding a bike isn't doing well or not. Is I it's kind of like the kids at the basketball court that played college ball or maybe semi-pro went and played in Italy or something. I had some from friends back in Phoenix that did that, and they thought they could still make it. And you laugh at those guys like, dude, you're 35 years old. You're not joining the Celtics. Let it go, right? But my problem was, like them, I get on a bike, I don't think. It's literally natural. Some little kid comes by and hits you or, does something, it's on. And I was a little aggressive when it came to riding. So it would be on, and I'd go after him. Literally, 17-year-old kid trying to make it like I did, and here I am chasing him down, trying to pass him, right? I just, this mental thing in my head, and I realized I couldn't do that anymore at that point. I could ride, but I couldn't ride at the track because I was going to be 16 again. And so I didn't. I haven't ridden a bike in 20 years. So, yeah. But that 35, I did pleasure. Now, I took that same passion, if you will, into my work to the opposite way for the next, what would have been 3 years, and very successful. I was at E&J Gallo at the time, opened up Walgreens. So the reason that you can go to Walgreens and buy wine and beer right now is because I worked with Walgreens. A couple other people, wasn't just me, but I was the guy who put wine back in Walgreens. And at the time, I was doing convenience for Gallo, had a 65 share of the market. We did more wine in Gallo than we did in restaurants, bars, and stadiums. Worked my ass off. Killed it. Absolutely killed it.
So that became your new passion.
That was it. But I was also working 6-7 days a week, traveling 4 days a week minimum. And it was just the opposite. 100% of mine was work. No outside. I mean, my wife, I was married, didn't have kids at the time. And then I had my son in 2005. And that was a blessing because then that made me change a little bit, settle down. And the reason I left Budweiser, I'll take you there, is so I wanted to be home more. Right? You got a, son, I got my boy, right, if you will.
Got your boy.
Got my boy, and I was going to raise him. And my wife's amazing mother, and it's like, okay, I need to be there too for him. So what I was doing was I would travel Monday through Thursday. I'd fly home Thursday night. My wife would say, here's your son. And so now it was almost like single mom 4 days, single dad 3 days. Wasn't, she helped a lot. But when he got old enough, it was great. I would pick him up from daycare. We'd go to the gym. He would play Lifetime Fitness, if people go to that out here. He would play with kids, have a great time. I'd be playing basketball for 2 hours. We'd hang out. If we weren't doing that, we'd get in the car and I'd drive to LA and we would go to Legoland or Disney or whatever, right? It was like it was just nonstop, 3 days of pleasure, 4 days of working my ass off, if you will. And that was a great balance. And then I went to Budweiser, and they moved me to St. Louis, and they took the pleasure away, if you will. And that's the reason I left Budweiser. Great company, great beer, but I think, and my wife said it because we had to move to St. Louis. She goes, I don't know why I moved to St. Louis. You're never home. And it may sound exciting, but you're working, traveling Monday through Friday. You're calling on major accounts, whether it be 7-Eleven, Circle K, Walgreens, Rite Aid, doesn't matter. And then you would think, like I was doing before, I'd get home Friday morning or Friday afternoon and have the pleasure of the weekend. But that's not my job at Budweiser. My job was then take the CEO of a chain to the Indy 500. Cardinals obviously play in St. Louis. You got an entertainment box. Well, I had so many customers. It wasn't like you take someone to a game on a Tuesday and then you're done for the month. No, I had people in every week in St. Louis that you take them to the game or a hockey game, or you're going to Indy, you're going to a football game, Super Bowls, hockey. I mean, because Budweiser's all sports. And everyone wants to be entertained. And when you have all those clients, you're entertaining. So I'd get home, call it Friday, say hi, and then I'm going to the game. Get back at midnight, wake up the next morning, you're going golfing or you're going somewhere else. And I'm trying to remember my first year at AB. I think I was only home like 21 days or something. It was
21 days out of what?
A year. It was stupid, absolutely ridiculous. And same sort of thing. I wasn't happy. It was just I was back to 24/7 working hard. At that point, my son was in third, fourth grade, something like that, third grade, and just watch him grow up really without me in essence, right? Because it's hey, Dad's home, hey, Dad's leaving. So I just called up one day and I go, look, I'm not back to 35, working, not going to work 24/7, 365 for this company. Budweiser's brutal, and the work-life balance at the time, don't know how they are now, but then it was at the time, they didn't care. You had to work, and you had to get the job done, you had to get your market share, it's just the way it worked. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm leaving. Left the best job in the industry, people thought I was crazy, did an e-cig startup, just out of the blue. It was at a trade show, and a guy I know came up to me, he's like, hey, have you ever thought about e-cigs? I'm like, what is it? It's hot. Like, and Logic electronic cigarettes, it's huge, obviously, here in New York, New Jersey. And I'm like, sure, I'll give it a shot. He goes, oh yeah, you could, just work and get, sales and small company startup. Killed it. Sold the company. What was it, about 14 months later? Sold it to Japan Tobacco. Did my 2 years. Great. It was great for me. Great work-life balance. Moved my son. We lived in Texas until we sold the company. And great work-life balance. Great. So back to the 50-50.
You were able to get the balance back.
Yeah. And now, I did a couple startups since then. And now this one was Stewarts. I actually was another life decision. I decided I was working at another startup, and COVID took it from nothing to about 40 million, just killed it. And then COVID magically ended, kind of, even though it's still out there, but all the masks and the sanitizers, all the wipes, all that stuff, people don't use them anymore. And so I was like, you know what, this isn't fun. I'm going to start my own consulting business, back to the Rolodex. And it was cool because all my friends around the industry, back to like, you'll always have a job. I never made so much money because everyone came out of the woodwork saying, hey, we need your help, need your help, need your help. Do this, do this. And I got back to working too much. I was working what seemed like 15 to 20 hours a day because everyone was dragging, pulling on me. Yeah. But it was great because it was fun, right? Because I could consult as opposed to carrying a bag, as we call it. And it was great. And then I was consulting with Stewarts, and I love the alcohol industry in general. And I could guide and build brands and develop brands and bring on a amazing team and build all that. And I'm like, sure. So I killed my consulting company, made less money, worked more hours, but it's fun. Yeah, it's fun because I get to work with the people I enjoy being with.
Is that more the culture, obviously, of where you're working plays a large role in your enjoyment, your mindset going into work. I've been certain places where it's miserable going in. It's hard to sleep the night before. Other places it's hard to sleep because I'm excited to get to work.
Right.
It just varies. But for you, is it a difference more so between the big corporations or the startups? Like, which would you say is more rewarding? Obviously, you don't have the same perks, being at the 50-yard line, being at all the races when you're in Anheuser-Busch compared to a startup. But which is more rewarding, and which did you feel that you got more out of?
Well, I got the most out of E&J Gallo, right? So that was my first 20 years. And that was a nice blend. They're a great company, just hit a glass ceiling. Right, so it's kind of like, for your world, if you're the number 2 quarterback behind Tom Brady, you're never getting on the field, and that may be great for people, but I was never going to get my boss's job. He's one of my best friends. He's still there. Great man, runs Gallo national accounts. Great guy, mentor to me, but I was never going to get his job. So the only reason I left Gallo was because I wanted more. Right, I thought I did. Especially at the time, right? I'm like, no, I want to grow my career. Because if you recall, I was telling you, because I had stopped racing, it was just the energy of work. So I'm like, no, I got to do more. And that's why I went to Budweiser. And Budweiser probably helped me in the fact I realized what I missed at Gallo, which was the free time, the personal me time, the family time that Budweiser didn't give. So, and that's a huge corporation, right? It's the number 1 spirit brand in the world. It's number 1 wine in the world, big corporation. And then you have a Budweiser, big corporation, but just culture, right, if you will. And I've worked for another big company, Advantage Solutions, and was successful there as well. And that was actually not bad, but culture. So it's kind of hard to say big company, small company.
Right.
Because I've been with a startup where my board was absolutely horrific. Like, I did not want to wake up in the morning to deal with them. And now my board of this company that I report to, they're great, right? They're supportive. They listen, call a lot, but that's okay. But they listen, and they're helpful, as opposed to being a pain, if you will, and not knowing, demanding. So it's really, I've had it both.
It just depends.
It just depends. It's really back to what you said, culture.
Sticking with culture.
Yeah.
As the CEO, I've always, whether it's sports or anything else, culture comes from the top down. At least where, the places that I've been. As the CEO, is that one of your top priorities, establishing the culture for the company?
You would hope so. To say that's been a success, I'd probably say no. And the reason is, we're revamping a little bit this year, in the sense, because the first year of a startup, it's 24/7, 365. I'm all, unfortunately, around the world getting this brand going, being the face of the brand, whether it's, I was in Australia, I was in Singapore, I was in Germany, I was in Israel, because you're getting everything started. And so you're just working your tail off, and you hope you hire the right people to build the culture you want. And some did, some didn't. So we're a little revamped and getting the culture back to where it needs to be, because I don't have to travel as much this year now that we got the brand up and going around the world. So we'll get the culture back to where it needs to be. But it's the most important, but the hardest to do if you're not the one doing it as a CEO.
Yeah.
And most CEOs don't do culture.
Really?
They don't. No, most CEOs, if you think about it, most CEOs are dealing with investors, they're dealing with banks, they're dealing with their CFO. They're not dealing with the street, right? They all try to use this bottom-up feeling of culture and talk about how the people are the most important. But to them, most CEOs, the most important guy is the bank, right? Or the McKinseys of the world, right? Or if they're going to sell it, they're dealing with investors or their own board. They're not building culture. They're really not. Head of operations builds culture. Head of sales builds culture. CEOs typically don't. Unless you're a startup, then you're everything, right? Chief sales officer, chief financial officer, CEO, chief people, you're everything. Production, and a startup. Major company, you're just a figurehead in the sense of culture.
That makes sense. It makes sense a lot, because you don't necessarily have time. You're not touching the actual, let's say like a sales manager. If you're running a sales team, it's probably more important for you to establish the culture among your people. And you brought up something that a few of my mentors have always told me, that everything starts with the hiring process. You have to hire the right people.
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to whether it's relationships or anything else. People don't change. People are the same people that you hired. You just didn't do a good job, I guess, filtering through and really reading them. But they are who, you know, anybody can come to work the first week, the second week, first month, and put on a front. But eventually you're going to find out exactly who somebody is. Has that been the case with you?
100%. Yeah, completely. You know, what's funny is my son, who's absolutely amazing, not just because he's my son, he, when I was leaving Monday morning, it was like 6 a.m. he got up. And he goes, Dad, I'm going to work harder than anyone else. Because he hears me talk about that all the time. And as you and I have talked, you know, to be successful is not it's kind of like losing weight, right? It's calories in, calories out. It's really not all the fad stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you work your ass off, you're going to be successful, right? Unless you're in a really bad situation. And that doesn't matter if you're a construction worker, an athlete. If you wake up before everyone, work your tail off, you're going to be somewhat, if not very successful. And my son goes, Dad, I'm like, well, he goes, I'm going to get up and outwork everyone. And he goes, but I'm not going to do it for 90 days and then relax and fit in like the rest of the world does in my age and culture. I'm looking, I'm like, what? He's 16 and a half years old. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? You're my kid. Wow. And it's true, though. You get a lot of people that'll do the first 2 weeks, 3 months, work their tail off, get into a system, and then we used to laugh about Florida. Give you another quick story is you could never have anyone in Florida for more than 2 years. Now let me get you there.
Yeah, I kind of see where this is going.
So
I've been in Florida.
You get all these you get all these people. You know, New Yorkers work their tails off. New Jersey works their tail off. Right, Midwesterners will work their tails off. You send someone to Florida, and the first year they work their tail off. Second year, it's like, hey, where are you? Well, you know, we're going to the beach on Saturday, so you know, I had to go to the store this morning, and all of a sudden it's 4:00 and they're at happy hour or cocktails. And it's like, what happened to the guy who worked his ass off? Right. And so you get this culture in Florida. I hate to say it, but there's not just all of Florida, but I'm just saying you get this kind of, California's a lot that way too, where they just get into this, I hate to even call it a funk, but I kind of would. But they just get into this, hey, I'm just living a good life, happy as can be. Back to your 50-50, they're 70-30 of fun versus work. And where you really like it 50-50. And so that's why Florida's always 2 years, get them out. In and out.
So I got 1 more year in Florida, and then I'm out. But mine's a little different. I'm halfway. I'm back and forth. So and it's funny that you mentioned that, because even when I come back, when I go down to Florida, as soon as I get out the airport, I breathe in the air. It's like a sigh of it's just a different feeling. I don't even want to. It's really a sigh of relief, but I didn't want to say that because, you know, even me saying that, it's kind of like, it's soft. Like, I need to be going down there to work. I'm not going down there for pleasure. I'm going down there to build relationships and business. But when I get back up here, I always say that as soon as I'm driving across the bridge, like, it puts me back in that game mode. Like, where, you know, it's kind of like Marvin Hagler used to say, like, it's hard to wake up and train the same way when you're waking up on like satin sheets, you know, $1,000 sheets and stuff. It's hard to get out of bed and train. Right. And it's just the reality of it. So I'm glad that I get the reminder, you know, coming here where, you know, down in Florida, everything's, you know, super nice, you know, super chill and relaxed. People take 2 weeks to make decisions here that take an hour. But then when I get here and I'm walking down the sidewalk, people bumping into me, it's that reminder of like, yeah, you're here now. You know, you're back in the jungle, so you need to survive. You need to adapt and survive. So it's a thing. Yeah. So that's so 2 years in Florida. That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you do try to go Western Florida.
Western.
Nicer.
All right. So then so you talked about the different skills that a CEO has to have, whether it's sales, marketing, people person. What would be the number one skill that, let's say, somebody's in their 20s, or even in their any point in their career, actually, because I don't think a lot of people are taught, you know, a lot of the soft skills and stuff like that, unless you're in sales. But any skill, what would you say was the most important for your success?
The most important, and I'll say this to anyone for anything, never think you're the smartest person in the room, because you're not. And that was probably the biggest skill. You said I was quiet as an example, but if you take the time to listen, you learn so much more. So if I were to tell my 20-year-old self today, and you want to be CEO, it's shut up, listen, absorb, get educated, and always learn, and speak when it's the right time. Because I can't tell you how many people that I have to go through in life that think they're the smartest person in the room. And they may be, but you don't need to think it, right? Unless you actually are. Mm-hmm. And there's very few Deion Sanders in the world, if you will, right? There's one, right?
There's one.
Maybe two.
Yeah.
And there's not 360 million
mm-hmm.
of them. So, yeah, to be successful, just be quiet and learn. Just mm-hmm. you can't. When you're speaking, you can't hear, right? It's just physical. Although my wife's really good at it, but you just need to listen, and you're going to learn so much more. I mean, there's so many smart people out there. I learn from my team every day. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just do. I mean, I can't have all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Just having that mindset keeps you open to learn.
Right. Yeah.
You're gonna get opportunities that you wouldn't if you just kind of came into the room with, hey, this is what it is. I'm up here. Everybody else is down here. Like you said, there's only one Deion Sanders.
Yeah. And there will be people that, will most likely, and just in general, it's like, well, no, it's your rule. You're the CEO. And typically not, right? Usually we get 3 or 4 opinions, and then I'll have to make the decision based on those 3 or 4 decisions, or 3 or 4 ideas. But ultimately, yes, I got to make the decision, but it's never my own 100% opinion. It can't be, unless the other 3 in the room have no idea, or right? Because there are, if you and I were to talk alcohol as an example, you don't come from that background. Mm-hmm. So odds are my opinion is going to be the one that's going to get chosen mm-hmm. because of that. And
I should sit here and listen to what you're saying. But seriously, that's kind of the common sense thing that I guess isn't always that common. I guess people feel the need to. I don't know. Maybe it's an insecurity that you just feel the need to say exactly what you want to say. Be up here, even at the event. Mm-hmm. So at the Think Billions event, like I said, I was really looking around just to see, different people, and I'm like, he's talking a little too much. He's probably not as successful as he's saying he is or appearing to be. Yeah. But you can tell. My college coach used to call it a quiet confidence bordering on cockiness. I don't think you had the bordering on cockiness. I think you just had the quiet confidence, at least from me. But I think the bordering on cockiness is important with as long as you have both aspects of it.
Yeah, I would agree on that. Mm-hmm. What my favorite line from coaches was, act like you're going to be there again when you mm-hmm. score a touchdown. Because I did play a little football as a kid, or wrestled and different things. And my coaches always, and even racing, if I'd win, and my dad instilled this in me too. Don't be that cocky punk. And I was a punk. I'll give you that. But it was always act like you're going to be there again. Mm-hmm. Act like you're going to win again. So if I won, I didn't, throw the bike down, jump up and down, scream, hey, look at me. I just won and went back to the truck and parked it and sat there, mm-hmm. right? Because I always had that in my head, act like you're going to be there again. Because no one likes a bragger. No mm-hmm. one likes that cocky, person self-promoting, usually, mm-hmm. right? Those mm-hmm. are the ones you look to knock down. And, I didn't want to be knocked down. I was usually knocking those cocky ones down myself. That's why I said
you bullied the bullies.
And I tell my son that today. Even it's like if you get a bully, pop him in the mouth. Mm-hmm. I mean, just that simple.
End it quick.
End it, yeah, mm-hmm. right there. If someone's being a bully and picking on you, hit him. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, don't say that in front of his mother, but Even another quick story, I don't know how long you want to go, but he was in grade school and 2 kids jumped him, kind of picked on him at a public school when he was like kindergarten or first grade, just, kids. And he got up, hit one, and started swinging at the other. Well, the principal calls, and I got to go pick him up, right, because he's getting kicked out for the day or whatever. And I'm sitting there in front of the principal. I'm like, what happened? He goes, well, Austin was playing in the sand, and these 2 kids came up and pushed him, threw sand on him, and he got up and hit one and was going after the other. And I go, oh. I go, so 2 kids were picking on him. He's like, yeah, but Austin, hit him. He's got to go. I go, great. Hey, buddy, you want to go to a movie? And the principal just looked at him.
You said it in front of...
Of course. And I looked at the principal and I go, he did exactly what he should do. I'm not going to raise a wussy. I go, he did what he should do. You aggressively go at a bully if they're a bully. And it teaches them right away that you're not the one to mess with. Because I was tiny, remember? Mm-hmm. So I never lost a fight in my life. Because, well, one, I was a decent wrestler, and 2, I was kind of a nice kid in general. But if I got in a fight, I'd swing right away.
Finish it first.
First, yeah. I mean, you go. It's right there. And, you don't chatter. It's like people sit there and chatter. No. If it's going, it's going. I haven't had a fight since high school. So, but he did that, and the principal, I'm not raising a wussy. 2 kids picked on him. I go, you need to discipline the teachers for not watching, because all 6 of them were out there looking at each other, chatting about the weekend or whatever, and not watching the kids, right? Because at that age, they're trying to, punch, bite, kick, feel the world out. And so they're going to have more of those confrontations. And if you let it happen, they're going to happen through life, right? Because you build your future as a child, right? I still say to this day, at 14, pretty much all men are done, right, with the way they're going to be. If they're a liar at 14, they're going to be a liar at 40. If they're a cheater at 14, they're going to be a cheater at 40, right? It's just, if they're a jerk, they're going to most likely be a jerk. It's just, for some reason, men or males at that age kind of had built their culture, if you will. At least I did, and most of my friends were that way. To this day, I can say, 14, you were exactly the same way that you are today.
More people should need to know that. You told me that when we were talking about relationships and everything, and that stuck with me. Made me think about a lot, and it made me change my perspective in a lot of relationships that I have overall. And I don't think people realize. If people accept that, I think there will be more of an emphasis on the development of a child before they're 14. And so my question to you is, I'm not sure. I'm very much just aligned with your thinking. That you can't raise a soft kid. It's not right. It's not fair to your child. No. It's not fair to him or her. And that's something that I feel like society has tried to get us to move our position on. And I'm trying to be PC saying this stuff, but it bothers me. It bothers me a lot. I feel like a lot of our kids are soft. The generations are soft, and I feel like if you step up and say something like you said, exactly what you should have in front of that principal, you get a lot of backlash. And I guess my question to you is, how do we kind of reset things? Because it's a huge problem. I see it. And I'm glad you said boys and girls, it's not fair too, because I see it a lot in not only the young boys, but the interactions that I have, my relationship I see it in, and it's just a mindset where it's like, hey, we cannot raise our kids to be this soft because we're crippling them for the future.
100%, yeah. You'd find it. My wife's an Iowa farm girl, and she's tough as nails. So my kid didn't have a chance. He was going to be tough. He was not going to be, a participation ribbon at, for 18th place. He just wasn't going to get that, and he wasn't going to get away with fake crying and all that. Because Mike, as our parents said, I'll give you a reason to cry. That culture.
Participation trophies.
He doesn't.
You're not with the participation trophy?
No, not at all. I mean, you're first or last, Ricky Bobby.
So your son comes home he just I don't know, it's a tournament. Let's say it's a tournament. And he got 5th place, 6th place, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But they give, hey, everybody got trophies though.
Yeah.
I've always said, I told my girlfriend this, I said, I can't wait until the day that happens. Hopefully my kid, I don't even want my kid to always win. I want him to learn some of the lessons, or her to learn some of the lessons, but I cannot wait till the day that my future child brings home a participation trophy. And hopefully I'm in front of the coach, whoever gave them the trophy, because I'm going to force them to destroy that trophy, that ribbon, whatever it is, because it's setting the wrong, you're confusing the kids.
Right.
You're making them feel that they're entitled to something if they didn't win. That's simple life. Sports is supposed to mirror life, not misguide you based on life. Right. So we're on the same page with that.
Yeah, like if Austin got them, they were sitting in a closet somewhere probably, because we didn't. But it's part of that. To your point, it's part of the culture today. And it's unfortunate, right? It's you go and you lose a soccer game, you still get to go to, McDonald's, the ice cream store, and it's a party as opposed to a competition. Life unfortunately is a competition, right? Because if we're going for the same job, we're not both getting the job, right? If we're both going for the raise, we're both going for a parking spot. Life is a competition, and we can sit there in the parking lot all day long and wave each other to the spot, but that typically doesn't happen in life, as you know. And you can't raise your kids that way. Shouldn't, at least. I guess I'm giving advice on raising kids, but you got to give them life skills before they're 14 or you're done. 15.
This is the jungle. It's the jungle. We're competing for resources. Yeah. And if you raise your kid thinking that it's anything but that, then to me, you're neglecting your role as a parent.
Yeah,
like, and I get it. And I'm speaking from somebody who doesn't have kids. I want to be clear on that.
Right.
But from my perspective, I see how it is. I'm competing in everything that I'm doing. Like there's everything is a competition. Yep. So, and I beat a lot of people who have this softer mindset, and I see a lot of other kids who may have a more competitive mindset than me, and I see the things where they have an advantage from certain things. So, yeah.
Well, my wife stayed home, but one of the best things we did, back to the kicking and punching, is when he was about 2, we put him in daycare. Not because my wife wanted free time, was because we wanted that culture of hitting, biting, just humans, if you will, being aggressive and learning life rules. And you don't get that if they're at home watching Bugs Bunny all day. You're not going to get that culture of the fight, if you will. And so we did it. It was one of the best things we did, right? Is put them in that dog eat dog, got bit people, punched, hair pulled. It's made fun of. It's just, it's part of childhood life.
You may have just changed my entire mindset on homeschooling. I get so pissed off because of everything else that we just discussed, like with society. Like, you're not going to school with these soft teachers, these soft learning, this soft culture. But the alternative is they're at home by themselves, not learning how to interact with different kids, how to influence, how to, all these life skills that you're talking about. So I don't know, maybe I need to reconsider some things. I guess I got some time.
You got some time.
I got some time.
And even I talked about it when we were out at the Billions event. Like my kid, I take almost everywhere if I can. He spent all summer opening countries, doing business, meeting people from all around the world and cultures. Just because I didn't want him to be the not knowing, not seeing, just watching the news. Because right now the news is brutal in the sense of everyone saying everyone else is wrong, right? And I hate to call it fake news because it's just news to sell advertising, really. But my child is sitting at home watching, seeing the news on the radio, and it's not real life, right? So I took him to Portland because was one of the 50 states we had to still see. And it was crazy. It's like, oh my God, you're going to Portland. People are pulling people out of cars and beating them up, and all these things are going on. And oh my God, how do you go there? My wife's like, you can't go downtown. Of course I did. Nicest people in the world. No one getting pulled out of a car. No one getting beat up. Nothing. No real graffiti. We walked around downtown all day. Great time. People were as nice as can be, opening doors, friendly. Nothing like you saw on TV. Not even close. What you saw on TV was like a kind of a 2-block area. That's
little pocket,
which is a pocket of life.
Pockets everywhere.
Right. And so literally it was like, honey, it was fine. So we were next to Ramallah in Israel. We went, there wasn't people in the back of trucks with machine guns. There wasn't people yelling and fighting. Nicest people in the world. The world is friendly if you get out there. Mm-hmm. But if you just watch the news, you think, oh my God, why would you go to, wherever? Like, it was fine. It's great. Mm-hmm. Right? It was great to see new cultures.
But that's not good advertisement.
No, doesn't sell news channels. No, doesn't sell podcasts. But it's life though, right? You gotta see it, touch it, feel it. Because if you just let somebody tell you on a news feed, you're not gonna learn it.
All right. Well, hopefully. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
Yeah.
And before we get off, I will ask you to come back.
All right.
Another time, even if we have to do it, obviously on Zoom or some platform. The new one's Riverside. I don't get paid for it, but the new one's Riverside that a lot of people are doing. But before you leave, wanted to just ask you, first, bounce back. Please, before we go, I wanted you to, talk about that. But
sure.
Then after that, just, tell us what's next for you. What's next for you? I know you have, I'm glad you brought it up with your son, because to me, when I see your Instagram or when I first spoke to you, I noticed that you brightened up when you talk about your son. Yeah. And one of the things that you took the most pride in was the fact that he gets to travel with you to a lot of these places. And those are invaluable experiences that I'm sure he takes a lot from, just like you took a lot from your dad, his work ethic and everything else. And now you're able to kind of return the favor and be with him a little bit more. I think that's what we need more in this world. We need more fathers, more men like you. So thank you for that. Yeah. But I want to know about Bounce Back, and I want to know what's next for Tony Gaines.
Oh, well, Bounce Back is our, well, I guess I can say it's our hangover cure, if you will, but it's actually a pre-drink, right? So Bounce Back, it's 17 different amino acids that kind of charge your body, because what happens, obviously, when you go to sleep, your body shuts down. It doesn't produce a lot of these things because it's resting. So what this does is it puts it in your body before you go to sleep, as opposed to most hangover cures, which are really just B12 and salt, right? So you take a couple aspirin, you drink a Pedialyte, and hey, I feel great, but you felt terrible for the 2 hours until it kicked in. What Bounce Back does is you take it as the last drink of the night. Like a lot of people say, take 2 aspirin and water. You can do that, but Bounce Back, if you will, puts all the vitamins, minerals in the night before. So the last little drink, you can even put vodka in it. If you want to have that last drink with vodka, it's fine. The minerals are still in there, vitamins, minerals still in there. You drink it, and you wake up without the hangover, as opposed to chasing the aspirin bottle. So that's that one. Product-wise, with the company Stewarts, you see internationally is doing incredible. We're opening up some Central America, Mexico. We just opened up Mexico, working on Japan. We open up Israel this spring. We'll open up all the islands, Greek islands, Spanish islands, if you will, this summer. We did a little bit last summer. We'll do a little more aggressive this year. Obviously, UK, Ireland, all that's great. US is going really good. We're doing a reboot in the sense of not trying to go to all 50 states. And when I say reboot, we're just saying, you know what? We got 20, I think we're at 22 states right now. We're okay. Great. We're in Walmart, Safeway, Kroger. We're in all the big ones. Things are going great. Now let's focus in those states that we have now and blow the brand up, as opposed to just getting distribution, right? So that's kind of new for us. And then we have 2 new products. There's 100 cal. It's not here. It's kind of the tequila grapefruit drink that comes out February 1st, roughly. And then we got a little canned cocktail, old-fashioned Manhattan, chocolate martini, and espresso martini. It's just heaven. I could drink them all day if I could. But they actually come out as well in February, and those drinks are just incredible. So if you get all the people that's like, oh, I make the greatest Manhattan in the world, and it takes them 30 minutes, and you're going thirsty. Come on, right? This is you pour it in a glass, pour it in a glass, and it's all ready to go for you. So that part's good. And then the rest is just, this being successful. My son wants to go to college, as I think we talked about. Still need to find someone that has a hookup at Morehouse. So if you know anyone, let me know.
We need to, the next episode, so very quickly, because I got to let you go.
Yep.
Tony's a very busy man, obviously. But I was so blown away when you mentioned your son interested in going to Morehouse.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. I think because you've had so many different experiences and you're bringing your son to different experiences, it allows you to see the world differently than what society tries to force on us. And I think we need more of that. And that's probably one of the things that I would love to elaborate on on the next time.
Excellent. Love to.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. When you go down to Morehouse and tour, let me know. I'll be coming there.
Come with me.
And anytime that your son can't come on a trip, we got Johnny, but I'm always here as well. So I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you giving us these gems. And everybody at home, make sure you guys check out Stewart. They're doing all the hard rock stuff. So there's a lot of different options. I'm sitting here, I'm drinking the margarita cocktail. It's amazing. And I'm very appreciative. I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So,
all right.
We here. Big fish shit. Ooh, ooh. Welcome to the podcast. Hope y'all enjoy it. Hope y'all learn something. And most importantly, we hope y'all elevate. Let's get it.
Big fish, hit a big lick. We gon' bet it right back and hit a big flip. We been up for a minute and we still lit. Get them cats going top, but we don't feel shit. We just giving y'all gems y'all can live with. Elevate your mind, never mind all the bullshit. Finna talk about stocks, we ain't worried about ops. First get the bread up, then buy back the whole block. 10 toes down, we ain't never gonna stop. I'm a man of my word, I ain't never gonna flop. If I said it, then I meant it. Real ones gon' respect it, and it's still OG, it's in me, I represent it.